So you're in the market for a new compact crossover and you're trying to decide, should you go with something a little bit more mainstream like the Ford Escape, or you want to figure out what's new about this Bronco Sport? Well, we're going to go over the differences between these two. Right off the bat, pricing is pretty similar. We both have top-end trims here. The 2021 Bronco Sport is a Badlands edition. This is the top-end, most off-road oriented version. And then our Ford Escape Titanium all-wheel drive here is also the top trim with the titanium package on it. So there are pretty much all the options for either vehicle. Now you can see the pricing below. We have both the MSRPs for the Bronco in US dollars and Canadian, as well as the as-tested price. There's a couple options on it. And then same thing for the Ford Escape. Also with all the options on it, there's about a $1,900 difference in terms of the price between these two vehicles as configured. But why would you be considering one over the other? What lifestyle would you kind of have for either one? Well, the Bronco is being targeted more as the off-road or outdoor enthusiast's choice. With over 100 authorized accessories from Ford available on the Ford Bronco Sport, you have a lot of options to be able to put things like a tent on the roof and bike racks and all sorts of things, canoes, boats. You name it, they've probably got the accessories for it. With the Ford Escape though, you pretty much just have the roof rack and trailer hitch on the back, so there aren't as many accessories for you there. So it depends on what you're looking for. So if you're going more outdoorsy, off-road, you like to do stuff, you need more cargo capacity in terms of what you can put on the vehicle, then the Bronco might be the way to go. But if you're looking for still a very competent vehicle that you can still have some fun off-road with, then the Ford Escape might be the one to go with. Now, both of these crossovers use the same 2-liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. They produce 250 horsepower, although there's a little bit more torque when it comes to the Escape. I think it's just the way the engines are tuned and the overall way the vehicle is set up. Now you do have an 8-speed transmission on either vehicle, but what's interesting is the towing capacity is actually better when it comes to the Ford Escape. You can tow up to 3,500 pounds, whereas the Bronco Sport can only do 2,200. Now these two crossovers are essentially cousins. They are on the same platform, even though the Broncos has been modified for a little bit more off-road orientation, but also for the different body style. The fact that this is a lot more squared off than the Escape. So you actually do lose out on things like the wheelbase and the length of the vehicle. In fact, the only thing that's actually a little bit better on the exterior dimensions is the vehicle, the Bronco, is a little bit wider without the mirrors. The mirrors are shorter, so the total width of the Escape is actually better, but you do have slightly wider mirrors. And then also the height is a little bit taller. As you can see, it's much more squared off than the Escape. And then even when it comes to the interior dimensions, things do look a little bit better on paper when it comes to the Ford Escape. What is interesting to note though, is the rear headroom on the Bronco is better. We do have this sort of raised roof line there, somewhat similar to older Land Rovers. So you do have a little bit better space in the back for headroom. When you look at the total capacities for both vehicles, passenger volume, cargo volume, and total cargo volume, the Escape is better. And it's so strange because I get it, this is a slightly smaller vehicle, the Bronco, but for the most part, the feel on the inside is more spacious. You have a squared off vehicle, so it feels a little bit spacier, whereas on paper, the Escape gives you more room. Now it's interesting when it comes to features and whatnot. Both have heated steering wheels, heated front seats, dual zone climate control, wireless phone charging. They both have all the safety tech that you would expect, like active cruise control, lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, and a backup camera, and both also have a 10-speaker B&O audio system, so you're getting mostly the same kit. But the Escape has a little bit more. It has a panoramic sunroof over the Bronco's regular sunroof. You also have a 10-way power seat for the driver with memory options, a 12.3-inch fully digital gauge cluster, a head-up display, and 19-inch rims. Now, if you're doing off-roading, these smaller rims on the Bronco would be better for you, but again, it depends on what you're looking for. What do you lose out though if you're not going with the Escape, if you go with the Bronco instead? Well, Bronco has the go over any type of terrain system, gives you a few extra modes over the basic all-wheel drive system on the Ford Escape, including things like the low crawl rock mode and mud and ruts. So a couple things there. Also, the fuel economy, a little bit worse when it comes to the Bronco. Unfortunately, we have not tested the Escape on our test loop, but on paper, the Bronco is just a little bit worse. I want to take both on the road though. We're going to talk about the Bronco first, talk about how the exterior and interior look, as well as how it performs and drives on the road. And then we are going to continue with the Ford Escape. But before we do, I want to just give a big thanks to Urjo Ford, our local dealership here in Actonville. If it wasn't for them, we would not be able to do this comparison for you today. They've allowed me to take their Ford Escape, take it on the road, and be able to feature this episode for you. And not only do they have a wide selection of new and certified pre-owned Fords here, but it's also a great place to have your vehicle serviced. It's where I bring my own 2006 Ford Focus. So big thanks again to Urjo Ford here in Actonville. And now we're going to hit the road in the 2021 Bronco Sport Badlands and see how it performs. Well, let's talk about things here on the Ford Bronco Sport. First off, the exterior is completely different than the Escape. And you can see how, even though it's essentially the same platform, pretty similar vehicle, the exteriors can be so different. This is very squared off. It's outdoorsy, it's rugged, it's masculine. It doesn't look like anything else that Ford is currently producing, so it's got a good look to it. I personally like it. It might not be for you, and there's some, heritage traits to the front end from the original Bronco, so if you're interested in that is only available on this. You can't get it on the Escape. So it does look bigger on the outside, even though the dimensions are in favor of the Escape. Some of the other important things about the outside, the tech differences, like they're pretty much the same. Both have LED headlights, LED fog lights. I mentioned all the safety tech. There's a backup camera on both. There is a forward-facing camera on this trim on the Bronco Sport. You do not get a forward-facing camera on the Escape, so that could be useful. Perhaps they say that this is more for rock climbing and things like that, but you do have that, but you don't have front parking sensors, so you gain some, you lose some. And then the tailgate on the Escape, you can open that up power operated, whereas the one on the Bronco is a manual one, but you do have a separate glass opening on the Bronco Sport, which is something you really don't see anymore, which is a nice feature to have. And the way that the trunk is set up on the Bronco Sport, Ford has this shelf divider that you can configure. It can turn into a table. It's like a 5-in-1 setup, so you get that with this, whereas with the Escape you could option a privacy cover if you want, and that's about it. So a couple differences there. Inside though, things are also very different, but again, you can kind of tell that they're based off the same platform. We have similar tech. The computer screen in the driver cluster is smaller than it is on the Escape, but we have basically the same infotainment system, same speaker system, same HVAC controls, and the seats and space in here are good. I'm comfortable. I'm a big dude, but I find that the seats have a lot of cushion to them and they're pretty comfortable. Visibility on this is outstanding, although I do wish the rear, the wiper blade on the back tailgate there, was a little bit bigger, but for the most part it works. Even the center layout is pretty similar between these two vehicles, with the wireless phone charger and drive mode selector. And I did mention outside that the go over any type of terrain, the GOAT system on this does have a couple extra options. First off, with this vehicle we can lock the four-wheel drive system to be in four-wheel drive all the time. Both vehicles can disengage the rear wheels, but this one you can make sure that it's always in four-wheel drive mode. Plus with the GOAT system we do have, as I mentioned, the rock climbing mode and sand and mud and snow and all sorts of different features that you don't necessarily need if you're driving a Ford Escape, but something that you might be interested in if you're doing some more off-roady and outdoorsy stuff with the Bronco Sport. But you do have some drive modes there. But essentially the ride is pretty good. Power on this is pretty decent for a compact crossover. Both again are pretty much the same. You have flappy paddles on this if you wanted to use them. 8-speed transmission works, although I have found with this one it does get a little lost sometimes, but for the most part it works. Interior road noise is good, comfort is good, the drive, ride, and handling is good. Even though this is an off-road oriented suspension, I do find that it's pretty smooth. That might be different when we go up to the big Bronco, but at least for compact crossovers and compared to the Escape, this is pretty good. So if you're worried that you're going for a Bronco and you want to do the outdoor stuff that fits your lifestyle, but you're like, I don't know if I want to sacrifice my ride, don't worry about it. It's not going to be that bad. I have to say that this is pretty smooth for an off-roady type vehicle. Aside from that though, this vehicle works really well. I like the space in it. I like the headroom. There's tons of it in here, and it really does work. So there's a lot of good that goes on with the Ford Bronco Sport. And again, pricing's pretty similar. You can configure them differently, but at the end of the day, you're sort of getting similar stuff for them. So it's going to come down to what you want out of a vehicle. But if you're going to the dealership and both are available and you're curious what the differences are, hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of how the Bronco compares. But now we need to go into the Ford Escape. We're going to go take that on a drive. We're going to talk about the exterior, the interior, and how it drives and performs in comparison to this, so that you can make a better decision if you're in the market for a Ford compact crossover. We are now in the 2021 Ford Escape Titanium. And the great thing is, since we're taking off from the same place, we're starting off at Yearjo Ford here in Actonvale, it gives me the opportunity to drive the same route, so I have a pretty good idea of how the vehicle is overall. Now, what can I tell you about the exterior? I do like it. It's kind of bubbly, looks similar to, I guess, what the European Ford Focus would look like, but yeah, it's not an offensive design whatsoever. It's very conservative to what Ford has been doing with their styling. The front end looks pretty good. So overall, you're getting a handsome vehicle, and it looks quite different, obviously, from the Bronco. As I mentioned, we have full LED headlighting on this vehicle. You do have front and rear parking sensors with backup camera, but no front camera like we saw on the Bronco. And aside from that, I mean, it's a good looking car. Now, when we're taking it for a drive here, you can see probably on the video that you kind of eat up the bumps the same way that we did on the Bronco. There's no real difference so far with the suspension. I mean, maybe it's just a little bit softer than the off-road oriented one on the Bronco, but for the most part, you're getting a very similar experience. Same thing with performance. As I mentioned, you have like 3 extra pound-feet of torque. When it comes to this, it's not that big of a deal. You're not going to feel it. Towing numbers, though, that's different. So if you are going to be towing, it is kind of interesting that the Bronco has such a small towing number compared to the Escape. Now, we'll pick that stuff back up in a minute. I just want to talk about the interior on this. Yeah, it's functional just like it is on the Bronco. It's not quite as squared off. We have good setup here with the color head-up display. A couple other features that you get with this as well is the universal garage door opener, which would have been a nice thing to have, as well as the power driver seats with memory, where you just had regular power seats on the Bronco Sport. So a couple changes there. Aside from that, though, you're getting a pretty good setup here, good amount of tech, full color gauge cluster, 12.3 inches as we mentioned. So you have a little bit more customization with that, but for the most part, it's kind of the same idea with just a slightly bigger screen and less analog data. Infotainment system is the same, and you got the 10-speaker B&O audio system as well. It sounds pretty good. So the idea is you're getting more or less the same stuff. This vehicle, though, has less sort of the outdoorsy oriented features. These seats are leather and they're good, but the back of them, they're just regular pockets in there. But with the Bronco Sport on the back, you have the mole system, which allows you to attach things to it a little easier. Sunglasses, peripherals, whatever it may be. It's used by the United States military, so that is in the back of that. Plus, there's like a pouch that's really padded if you have like a laptop or tablet, something you want to put in there that maybe you don't want your kids to kick and break, so it's a little safer back there in the seat. So a couple changes there. You just fold the seats flat. In the trunk, you have kind of more space than this, but a little bit more outdoor oriented with more washable materials. And that's the other thing too with the Bronco Sport, is the floors, you can just take out the carpet, the little carpet attachments that go onto it, and you can essentially hose the car out, whereas this, you don't want to do it. These are regular carpeted things in here. So aside from that, though, the experience is pretty similar. The thing is, though, you're going to blend in a little bit with this Ford Escape, and if you're like me here in Actonvale, where you live in a Ford town, you're going to see a lot of Escapes, whereas the Bronco, you're going to stick out just a little bit. Not quite as many of them on the road yet, so you're going to have a slightly more exciting experience, I'd say, in terms of standing out. But the idea is the ride is good, the comfort is good. Visibility on this, again, just like with the Bronco, is good. I'd say a little bit better out of the back window than it is on that. Plus, you got the panoramic sunroof, so there's more features. Again, depends on what you're going for out of a vehicle. If you want something that has more features, a little bit more tech, little bit more comfortable, just like it's like microscopic, the difference, then you might want to go with the Escape. But if you are looking for something that gives you some flexibility, you want to do some stuff that isn't just driving to the parking lot, getting groceries, and coming home, then maybe the Bronco's the way to go. It ultimately comes down to what you want out of your vehicle, and because SUVs and crossovers are the future, it is good to have more choice. The Bronco Sport might not be for everybody. In fact, it might be for a very small segment of people, but the fact that it exists gives you more options. And pricing is pretty similar. I know that the compact crossovers are getting more and more expensive. When we first started doing regular content here on Test Drive, you know, $39,000, $40,000 Canadian was kind of the top end, and now we keep going up and up and up. And as I mentioned, this one's about $1,900 cheaper. You do get more tech with it and a couple more features, so it works out that way. But I know I keep saying it, it ultimately comes down to your lifestyle, what you plan on doing with your vehicle. They do offer very similar experiences from terms of ride performance, drive, and all that, and overall interior comfort. The space on this is better, the tech on this is better, and the price is ultimately better on this. Plus, you have more options too. I mean, we're just looking at these straight gas versions here. You know, we're kind of assuming that you're looking at the same price points or similar features, but the fact is the Escape currently comes as a hybrid as well as a plug-in hybrid, so you do have some more options there. So it comes down to that. If you are more outdoorsy, you're definitely going to take the Bronco Sport. If it were up to me, if I were buying this, it's a tough choice, because I do like the Bronco, but I also do like having a couple of the extra features. So I think for me, based on, you know, what I kind of do in my day and all of the things that factor into how I would purchase a vehicle, I think I would take the Bronco. Just kind of looks a little cooler, fits in more with my lifestyle, and I would be using it more as sort of like a commercial vehicle, so the boxiness would work out for me. But let me know in the comments below which of these you would take and why. You can subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and also please consider giving a thumbs up to the video. It helps our analytics and algorithm and all the mysteries that come with YouTube. So thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.